I never thought I would be the kind of man who checks his wife's phone. But there I was, at 3 in the morning, sitting on the edge of our bed, holding the device that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my marriage. The soft glow of the screen illuminated her sleeping face, peaceful and beautiful, completely unaware that in a few hours, our 9 years together would begin to crumble. What I found in those messages wasn't just words on a screen. It was a secret life, a parallel universe where my wife was someone else's emotional companion, someone else's confidant, someone else's future. And the worst part? Our children, our precious adopted children, had been taught to help her hide it all. Hello, my Whispering Bee family. How are you all doing this week? Today, I'm sharing the journey of Philip Harrison, from discovering his wife's emotional affair with her abusive ex, through a difficult divorce and custody battle, to her eventual downfall. But this is also a story of healing, therapy, rebuilding, finding love again with Aubrey, and creating a new life and family. Let me take you back to the beginning, to when everything still made sense. 9 years ago, I met Sharon at a coffee shop downtown. She had just gotten out of a difficult relationship, one that left her bruised, both physically and emotionally. Her ex, Derek, had been controlling and abusive. She told me stories that made my blood boil, stories of him grabbing her wrists too hard, pushing her against walls during arguments, isolating her from her friends and family. When she finally found the courage to leave him, she swore she would never let anyone hurt her like that again. She swore she would never be a cheater because Derek had cheated on her, and she knew how much that pain cut deep into the soul. I fell in love with her strength, her vulnerability, her determination to build a better life. I wanted to be the man who showed her that love could be safe, that love could be steady and true. We got married after 2 years of dating, and I thought we were building something beautiful together. My parents had passed away a year before I met Sharon. They left me their house, a beautiful 3-bedroom home in a quiet neighborhood with a big backyard and an oak tree that my father had planted when I was born. The house was solely in my name because I inherited it before our marriage, but I never thought of it as just mine. It was ours. It was where we would raise our family. Sharon and I talked about children early on. She was clear from the start that she did not want to give birth. It wasn't about medical reasons or fear of pregnancy complications. She simply did not want to go through the physical process of carrying and delivering a child. She was honest about it, and I respected her choice. We both wanted to be parents, so adoption felt like the perfect path for us. We wanted to give children who needed a home all the love we had to offer. The adoption process was long and emotional. There were home visits, background checks, interviews, and so many moments where we held our breath, hoping we would be chosen. And then, finally, we were. First came Lena, a bright-eyed 4-year-old with curly brown hair and a laugh that could light up any room. She had been in foster care for 2 years, and when we brought her home, she clung to Sharon like she was afraid we might disappear. A year later, we adopted Tyler, a quiet 6-year-old boy with a love for drawing and building things with his hands. He took longer to warm up to us, but when he finally called me Dad for the first time, I cried like a baby. Our family felt complete. Sharon stayed home with the kids while I worked as a project manager for a construction company. The job paid well, and I traveled about every 6 weeks for site inspections and client meetings. Sharon seemed happy in those early years. She had worked for about 2 or 3 years after we got married, doing administrative work at a local real estate office, but she never really enjoyed it. When Lena came into our lives, Sharon was relieved to quit and focus on being a full-time mom. I supported that decision because I wanted her to be happy, and I could provide for our family comfortably. But somewhere along the way, things started to shift. It was subtle at first. Sharon started going out more. Girls' nights out with her friends, shopping trips that lasted all afternoon, sleepovers at her friend Jessica's house. I didn't think much of it at first. She deserved time with her friends. She deserved a break from the kids. But then I started noticing little things that didn't add up. She would come home from these outings and seem distant, distracted. She would check her phone constantly, smiling at messages she never showed me. When I asked about her day, her answers were vague. She stopped initiating conversations about the future, about the kids' schooling, about our plans for the holidays. It was like she was physically present but emotionally somewhere else entirely. One night, about 8 months ago, we were sitting on the couch after the kids had gone to bed. I tried to talk to her about how I was feeling, how disconnected we seemed. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and said something that knocked the wind out of me. "I feel trapped." "Trapped?" I asked, genuinely confused. "Trapped how?" She gestured around the house. "Everything is in your name. The house, the savings, everything. If something happened between us, I would have nothing. I have no job, no income of my own. I'm completely dependent on you." I was stunned. I had never thought about our arrangement that way. The house was in my name because I had inherited it, but I always considered everything we had as ours. I told her that if she wanted to work again, I would support that. If she wanted her name added to accounts, we could talk about it. But she just shook her head and said she needed time to think. That conversation haunted me. I started paying closer attention, and that's when my gut really started screaming that something was wrong. The shopping trips became more frequent. The girls' nights out stretched later and later. And then I noticed she had started dressing differently, wearing makeup on days when she used to just throw on jeans and a t-shirt. She bought new clothes, got her hair done more often. When I complimented her, she barely acknowledged it. I tried to talk to her again, but she brushed me off. She said I was being paranoid, that she was just trying to take better care of herself. But the feeling wouldn't go away. It sat in my chest like a stone, heavy and cold. Then came the breaking point. I had been away on a work trip for 4 days. When I came home, Lena seemed quieter than usual. She barely looked at me during dinner, and when I tucked her into bed that night, she held onto my hand tighter than normal. "Daddy," she whispered, "can I tell you something?" "Of course, sweetheart. You can tell me anything." Her bottom lip trembled. "Mom said I'm not supposed to tell you, but I don't like keeping secrets from you." My heart started racing. What kind of secret, Lena? She took a deep breath, and then it all came pouring out. She told me that when I was away on work trips, Mom would FaceTime someone. A man. She would talk to him for hours, laughing and smiling in a way that made Lena uncomfortable. Sometimes, Mom would put Lena and Tyler on the FaceTime calls too, asking them to say hi to her friend. And Mom had told them very clearly that this was their special secret, that Daddy didn't need to know about Mom's friend because it would make him sad. I felt like I was falling through the floor. I kept my voice calm for Lena's sake, thanked her for being brave enough to tell me, and assured her that she did the right thing. After she fell asleep, I went downstairs and confronted Sharon. At first, she denied everything. She said Lena was confused, that she must have misunderstood. But I pressed, and finally, after what felt like hours, she broke down and admitted the truth. She had been talking to Derek, her ex, the man who had abused her 9 years ago. The admission felt like a punch to the gut. Of all the people in the world, why him? Why the man who had hurt her so badly? She tried to explain, her words tumbling out in a rush. They had reconnected on social media about a year ago. He had reached out to apologize for how he treated her, said he had been in therapy and worked on himself. They started talking as friends, just catching up. But over time, the conversations became more frequent, more intimate. They talked about their lives, their regrets, the what-ifs that haunted them both. I asked her point blank if she still loved me. She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything I needed to know. The next week was a blur. Sharon had a cosmetic surgery scheduled. A procedure she had been talking about for months. It was something she wanted to feel more confident, and I had agreed to pay for it. We had set up a payment plan, monthly installments that would take about a year to pay off. Despite everything that had just been revealed, I told her I would still cover it. I didn't want to be cruel, and part of me was still holding onto the hope that maybe, just maybe, we could work through this. The surgery went fine, and Sharon spent the next few weeks recovering. We were living in the same house but sleeping in separate rooms. She said it was because she needed space to heal physically, but I knew it was more than that. We were strangers living under the same roof, coexisting for the sake of the children, and because she had nowhere else to go. She took off her wedding ring. I noticed it the first morning after she removed it, and it felt like a door slamming shut. I kept mine on. I wasn't ready to give up, even though she clearly was. The nights were the worst. I would wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and hear her voice coming from her room. She would be on the phone or FaceTiming Derek. I heard her laugh, the same laugh she used to save for me. I heard her say, "I love you," the words soft and tender. I heard her talk about how things would be different now that she was attainable, now that she could be with him without any barriers. But here's the thing about Derek. He was inconsistent. Some days he would be affectionate and attentive, telling her everything she wanted to hear. Other days he would be cold and distant, barely responding to her messages. And Sharon would chase him, seeking reassurance, trying to prove that she was worth his attention. It was painful to watch, like seeing someone run after a bus that was never going to stop for them. Meanwhile, she was still living in my house, still benefiting from everything I provided. I paid the mortgage, the utilities, the groceries. She would send me texts asking me to pick up specific items from the store, things for the house, things for the kids. It was confusing and infuriating. If she was planning to leave, why was she still acting like this was her home? Why was she still making plans that involved me? One evening, she sat me down and laid out her expectations. She told me she planned to stay in the house for a few more months. During that time, she wanted us to focus on paying off her debts. She had credit card debt from her shopping sprees, a car loan, and now the cosmetic surgery payment plan. She didn't have a job, no income, but she expected me to take care of all of it before she left. I was speechless. She was having an emotional affair, planning a future with another man, and she wanted me to fund her exit. The audacity of it was staggering. But I didn't say anything that night. I just nodded and let her talk. Inside, I was calculating my next move. I called my best friend, Matthew, the next day. Matthew had been my rock through all of this, listening to me vent, offering advice, keeping me sane. I told him about Sharon's demands, about how she expected me to pay off her debts while she prepared to leave me for Derek. Matthew's response was immediate and firm. "Do not give her another dime. She made her choice. She chose him. You don't owe her anything beyond what you're legally required to provide. Protect yourself and protect those kids." His words were the wake-up call I needed. I had been so focused on trying to be the good guy, on trying to do the right thing, that I hadn't stopped to consider what was right for me and my children. A few days later, Sharon dropped the final bomb. She told me that she and Derek were planning to move in together. She expected me to finish paying off her debts, and then she would be gone. She said it so casually, like she was talking about the weather, like she wasn't ripping apart the life we had built together. That was the moment I decided I was done being a doormat. I contacted a lawyer the next day. I explained the situation, the emotional affair, the fact that Sharon had involved our children in her deception, her plans to move in with a man who had a history of physical abuse. My lawyer was clear about my options and my rights. Because the children were adopted and not biologically related to Sharon, and because I was the sole provider with stable income and housing, I had a strong case for full custody. The fact that Sharon had been coaching the children to lie to me, that she had exposed them to her affair partner via FaceTime, and that she intended to move in with someone who had a documented history of violence, all worked in my favor. I filed for divorce and for full custody of Lena and Tyler. The court process was grueling, but the judge saw through Sharon's excuses. She couldn't provide financially for the children. She had no stable housing lined up. She had involved them in covering up her affair. And when my lawyer presented evidence of Derek's past abuse, the judge made it clear that Sharon's judgment was severely compromised. I was granted full custody. Sharon was given supervised visitation rights, but she would not be taking the children anywhere, especially not around Derek. When the ruling came down, Sharon was furious. She tried to argue that I was being vindictive, that I was punishing her for falling out of love with me. But the judge wasn't swayed. The decision was about the best interests of the children, and those children needed stability, safety, and a parent who put them first. I also stopped paying her debts. My lawyer made it clear that I had no legal obligation to cover her credit card bills, her car loan, or her cosmetic surgery. Those were her responsibilities, and she would have to figure out how to handle them on her own. The change in Sharon was immediate and devastating. Without my financial support, she couldn't keep up with her payments. Her credit card companies started calling. The car was repossessed. The cosmetic surgery clinic sent her to collections when she missed payments. And Derek, the man who promised her a new life, who told her he had changed, who made her believe they could have a future together. He disappeared the moment he realized Sharon was broke. She had sold him a fantasy of a comfortable life, a woman who came with a house and financial security. When he found out she had nothing, that she was drowning in debt with no income, he stopped returning her calls. He blocked her on social media. He vanished like smoke. Sharon was devastated. She called me, crying, begging me to reconsider. She said she had made a mistake, that she never should have left, that she wanted to come home. But I was done. The man who would have done anything to save his marriage 9 months ago no longer existed. That man had been killed by 1,000 small betrayals, by late-night phone calls to another man, by lies taught to innocent children, by the casual cruelty of being used while being discarded. I told her no. I told her the house was no longer her home, that the children had been through enough, and that she needed to figure out her own life without dragging us down with her. Finding housing was a nightmare for Sharon. With no job, no references, and terrible credit, her options were extremely limited. She ended up renting a room in a rundown apartment in one of the worst neighborhoods in the city. She shared the small space with 2 other people, strangers who came and went at all hours. It was a far cry from the comfortable home she had taken for granted for so many years. She eventually found work at a grocery store, stocking shelves and working the register. It was minimum wage, part-time hours, barely enough to cover her rent and food. Every time I dropped the kids off for their supervised visits, I could see the exhaustion on her face, the reality of the consequences of her choices etched into every line. Lena and Tyler struggled with the separation at first. They didn't understand why Mom didn't live with us anymore, why they only saw her for a few hours every other weekend with a social worker present. I got them into therapy immediately. We found a wonderful counselor named Dr. Portia Clive, who specialized in helping children process family trauma. She had a warm, inviting office filled with toys and art supplies, and she had a gift for making kids feel safe enough to share their deepest feelings. The first few sessions were difficult. Lena would sit on the couch clutching her favorite stuffed bunny, tears streaming down her face as she tried to explain why she felt like everything was her fault. She believed that if she had told me about Mom's secret friend sooner, maybe Mom would still be living with us. Dr. Clive worked patiently with her, using play therapy and gentle conversations to help Lena understand that none of this was her responsibility. Children should never have to carry the weight of adult problems, Dr. Clive would say. Your only job is to be a kid. Tyler was quieter in therapy, preferring to draw rather than talk. But his drawings told the story his words couldn't. He drew pictures of our house with only 3 people in it, him and Lena and me. He drew pictures of a woman standing far away, disconnected from the family unit. He drew pictures of phones and computers with angry scribbles over them. Dr. Clive helped me understand that Tyler was processing his trauma through art, working through his confusion about why Mom had brought a stranger into their lives, why she had asked them to hide things from me. Week by week, session by session, the kids started to heal. Dr. Clive taught them coping strategies for when they felt overwhelmed. She helped them understand that it was okay to love their mom while also being hurt and confused by her choices. She created a safe space where they could express anger, sadness, fear, and everything in between without judgment. I went to therapy too. My therapist, Dr. Michael Rodriguez, became my lifeline during those dark months. I would sit in his office every Thursday evening, sometimes crying, sometimes raging, sometimes just sitting in stunned silence trying to process the enormity of what had happened to my life. Dr. Rodriguez helped me understand that I wasn't just mourning the end of my marriage. I was mourning the death of the future I had imagined, the family trips we would never take, the anniversaries we would never celebrate, the partnership I thought was unbreakable. I was mourning the version of Sharon I thought I knew, the woman I had fallen in love with, the mother I believed was devoted to our children. But I was also mourning the version of myself that had existed before the betrayal. The man who trusted easily, who believed the best in people, who thought love was enough to overcome anything. That man was gone, replaced by someone more cautious, more skeptical, more aware of the shadows that could hide behind smiling faces. Dr. Rodriguez helped me sit with that grief without letting it consume me. He taught me that it was possible to acknowledge the pain while also moving forward. He helped me understand that healing wasn't about forgetting what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. It was about integrating the experience into my life story without letting it define my entire narrative. We talked about boundaries, about the importance of putting myself and my children first. We talked about the guilt I felt for not seeing the signs sooner, for not protecting Lena and Tyler from being dragged into Sharon's deception. Dr. Rodriguez reminded me over and over that I was not responsible for Sharon's choices, that I had done my best with the information I had at the time. Healing wasn't linear. Some days I felt strong and certain that I had made the right choice. I would wake up energized, get the kids ready for school, go to work, come home and cook dinner, help with homework, and feel genuinely okay. I would look at my life and feel proud of how I was handling everything, proud of my strength and resilience. Other days I felt crushed by loneliness and doubt. I would lie awake at 3 a.m, my mind spinning with questions. Had I given up too easily? Should I have tried harder to save the marriage? What if Sharon really did change? What if Derek really had become a better person? What if I was depriving Lena and Tyler of a relationship with their mother because of my own hurt feelings? Those were the nights when I would text Dr. Rodriguez, and he would respond with gentle reminders of reality. Sharon had chosen Derek over her family. She had involved innocent children in her deception. She had taken advantage of my support while planning her exit. She had shown me through her actions that she was not capable of being a healthy partner or parent at that time. Walking away wasn't giving up. It was choosing myself and my children over a relationship that had become toxic. The doubt would ease slowly, and I would get through another day, then another, then another. I kept showing up for myself and for my kids. I kept going to therapy. I kept building a life that was stable and safe. I established routines that the kids could count on. Every morning, I would make them breakfast, usually pancakes or French toast on weekends, and oatmeal or eggs on school days. We would eat together and talk about the day ahead. Every evening, we would have dinner as a family, no phones allowed at the table. We would share our highs and lows from the day, something Dr. Clive had suggested to help the kids process their emotions. Bedtime became sacred. I would read to Lena and Tyler every night, even though Tyler was getting a bit old for it. He never complained, though. I think he needed the comfort and consistency just as much as Lena did. After stories, we would talk about anything on their minds. Sometimes they wanted to talk about school or friends or their latest interests. Sometimes they wanted to talk about Mom and the changes in our family. I answered every question as honestly as I could in age-appropriate ways, always reassuring them that they were loved and safe. I also made sure we did fun things together. We went to the park on Saturdays. We had movie nights with popcorn and blankets. We visited museums and the zoo. We took day trips to nearby towns to explore. I wanted them to know that even though our family looked different now, we could still have joy and adventure and love. The healing process was slow, measured in tiny victories. The first time Lena laughed spontaneously at something silly I said. The first time Tyler showed me a drawing that included bright colors instead of dark scribbles. The first time we made it through an entire day without anyone crying or mentioning the divorce. The first time I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about Sharon at all the day before. Those small moments added up, building a foundation for the future that was coming. A future I couldn't quite imagine yet, but one I was beginning to believe in. About 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Sharon reached out again. She said she had been doing a lot of thinking, that she understood now what she had thrown away. She asked if there was any chance we could try again, if I could find it in my heart to forgive her. I met her at a coffee shop, the same one where we had met all those years ago. She looked different, older and worn down by life. She told me she was sorry that she had been selfish and stupid, that she missed me and the kids every single day. I listened to everything she had to say, and then I told her the truth. I told her that I didn't hate her, that I hoped she found peace and stability in her life. But I also told her that there was no going back. She had made choices that couldn't be undone. She had taught our children to lie. She had chosen a man who abused her over the husband who loved her. She had treated our marriage like a safety net she could return to whenever her other plans fell through. I deserve better than that, I told her, and so do Lena and Tyler. She cried, but I didn't waver. I paid for her coffee, wished her well, and walked out of that shop knowing I would never look back. Life moved forward. The kids thrived in therapy and in the stability of our routine. Lena joined a dance class and discovered a passion for ballet. Tyler started taking art lessons, and his drawings covered every wall of our house. We became a tight unit, the three of us, learning to laugh again, learning to trust again. About a year after the divorce, I met Aubrey. It wasn't a dramatic, movie-style meeting. It was ordinary and real, which somehow made it even more special. It was parent-teacher conference night at Tyler's elementary school. I had been dreading it a little because these events always reminded me that I was a single parent now, surrounded by couples who seemed to have it all together. I walked into Tyler's classroom and was greeted by his teacher, Miss Aubrey Hartley. She had warm brown eyes, an easy smile, and an enthusiasm for teaching that radiated from every word she spoke about my son. She told me about Tyler's progress, how his artwork was exceptional, how he was kind to the other children, how he sometimes seemed a bit withdrawn but was opening up more each week. She asked thoughtful questions about his home life, not in a nosy way, but in a way that showed she genuinely cared about understanding the whole child. I found myself lingering after the conference was officially over, asking her questions about how I could better support Tyler at home. She gave me suggestions for art supplies, books he might enjoy, ways to encourage him to express himself. And then, somehow, we started talking about other things. Our favorite books, places we wanted to travel. What made us decide on our career paths? When I finally glanced at my watch, I realized we had been talking for 45 minutes, and there was a line of parents waiting outside the classroom door. I apologized profusely, but Aubrey just laughed and said it was nice to have a parent who was so engaged. As I left, she called after me, "Mr. Harrison." I turned back. She smiled. "Tyler is lucky to have a dad who cares so much. Keep doing what you're doing." That simple encouragement meant more to me than she could have known. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in months. The next week, I volunteered to help with the school's art fair. Tyler had 3 pieces being displayed, and I wanted to be there to support him. Aubrey was one of the coordinators of the event, and we kept running into each other throughout the evening. We would chat for a few minutes here and there, easy conversations that felt natural and unforced. At the end of the night, as I was helping take down decorations, Aubrey asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime. Just as friends, she added quickly, "I know you're going through a lot right now, and I thought maybe you could use someone to talk to who isn't a therapist or a lawyer." I was surprised and touched by her thoughtfulness. I said yes. Our first coffee meeting was at a small cafe near the school. We sat for 2 hours, talking about everything and nothing. Aubrey told me about her life. She had grown up in a stable, loving home with parents who had been married for over 40 years. She had always wanted to be a teacher, had never been married, had a few serious relationships that hadn't worked out for various reasons. She was 34, loved hiking and reading, and had a rescue dog named Biscuit who was afraid of his own shadow. I told her about my divorce, about Sharon's affair, about the custody battle. I was honest about where I was emotionally, about the fact that I was still healing and probably would be for a long time. I expected her to make excuses and leave, to decide I was too much baggage. But she didn't. She listened with compassion and without judgment. She shared that her older brother had gone through a difficult divorce a few years ago, and she had watched him rebuild his life from the ground up. She understood that healing took time. We started meeting for coffee regularly, every other week at first, then weekly. It was easy being around Aubrey. She never pressured me for more than friendship. She never asked intrusive questions or tried to fix me. She just showed up, consistently and warmly, as a friend when I desperately needed one. The kids met her a few months into our friendship. Tyler already knew her from school, of course, but I introduced her to Lena at a school picnic. Aubrey was so natural with children, getting down on Lena's level to admire her dress, asking her about her dance classes, genuinely interested in what she had to say. Lena, who had been shy around new people since the divorce, opened up to Aubrey almost immediately. Over time, Aubrey became woven into the fabric of our lives. She would come to Tyler's art shows and Lena's dance recitals. She would bring coffee and bagels on Saturday mornings when she knew I had been up late with work. She would text me funny memes or articles she thought I would enjoy. She never tried to take up too much space or insert herself where she wasn't wanted. She just quietly became someone I looked forward to seeing, someone who made my day better by being in it. It took me a long time to recognize that I was falling in love with her. I had been so focused on protecting myself and my children, on building walls to keep out potential hurt, that I almost missed the gentle, steady way Aubrey had slipped past my defenses. The moment I realized it was during a school field trip to the Science Museum. Aubrey had invited me to come along as a chaperone, and we spent the day wrangling a group of 8-year-olds through exhibits on dinosaurs and space and the human body. At one point, Lena ran up to me excited about something she had learned, and Aubrey crouched down beside her to hear all about it. Watching the two of them together, seeing Aubrey's genuine interest and Lena's animated explanation, something in my chest cracked open. This was what I had been missing with Sharon. This ease, this authenticity, this feeling of being seen and valued not for what I could provide, but for who I was. After the kids went to bed that night, I called Dr. Rodriguez in a panic. I told him I thought I might be developing feelings for Aubrey, and I was terrified. What if I was just looking for a replacement for Sharon? What if I was projecting my need for a partner onto the first kind woman who showed me attention? What if I got hurt again? What if I hurt Aubrey? What if I hurt my kids by bringing someone into their lives who might leave? Dr. Rodriguez listened patiently to my spiral of anxiety, and then he asked me a simple question. Does being around Aubrey make you feel more like yourself or less like yourself? More, I answered immediately. So much more. Then maybe that's your answer, he said gently. You're allowed to be happy again. You're allowed to love again. It doesn't erase what happened with Sharon, and it doesn't mean you're not still healing. It just means you're human, and humans are wired for connection. But how do I know if it's real? I asked. How do I know I'm not just fooling myself? You won't know for sure until you try, Dr. Rodriguez said. And that's scary. But the alternative is closing yourself off from the possibility of love because you're afraid of getting hurt. Is that really how you want to live? It wasn't. Despite everything I had been through, despite the betrayal and the pain, I still believed in love. I still wanted partnership and companionship. I still wanted to show my children what a healthy relationship looked like. So I took a leap of faith. I asked Aubrey out on a real date, not just coffee as friends. I was nervous, stumbling over my words as I explained that I really enjoyed spending time with her, and I was wondering if maybe she might want to explore something more than friendship. I braced myself for rejection, for her to say she only saw me as a friend, or that she didn't want to complicate things because of Tyler being her student. But Aubrey's face lit up with the most beautiful smile. She said she had been hoping I would ask, that she had felt a connection between us for months, but didn't want to rush me or make me uncomfortable given everything I was going through. Our first official date was dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant. We talked for hours, and this time there was a different energy between us. It was the energy of possibility, of two people who had found each other at the right time, who were both ready to be vulnerable and open to what might develop. Aubrey was patient with my hesitation and my baggage. There were times when I would pull back emotionally, when old fears and insecurities would surface. Times when I would overthink a text message or misinterpret a comment because my trust had been so thoroughly broken by Sharon. Aubrey never got frustrated with me. She would gently reassure me, communicate clearly about her feelings and intentions, and give me space when I needed it. She understood that I came as a package deal with 2 children who had to be my priority. She never complained when I had to cancel plans because Lena was sick or Tyler had a school event. She celebrated with me when the kids hit milestones and consoled me when they struggled. She fell in love with Lena and Tyler almost as quickly as she fell for me, but she also respected boundaries. She never tried to replace Sharon or act like their mother. She was simply Aubrey, a steady, loving presence in their lives. Lena took to Aubrey quickly. Within a few months, she was asking when Aubrey would be coming over, suggesting we invite her to family movie night, wanting Aubrey to help her practice her dance routines. Tyler was more reserved, as was his nature, but I could see him warming up to her too. He would show her his artwork without me prompting him. He would ask her opinion on which colors to use in his drawings. He started smiling more when she was around. Aubrey's parents, Richard and Carol, welcomed us into their family with open arms. The first time I met them was at a Sunday dinner at their home, about 6 months into our relationship. I was terrified. I brought Lena and Tyler along, and I worried constantly about making a good impression, about my kids behaving well, about whether they would judge me for being divorced with children. My fears were completely unfounded. Richard and Carol were warm and accepting from the moment we walked through the door. Richard shook my hand firmly and said any man who made his daughter smile like that was all right in his book. Carol immediately started fussing over Lena and Tyler, asking about their favorite foods and showing them photos of Aubrey as a little girl. We spent the afternoon in their backyard, playing catch and croquet while Carol prepared dinner. Over the meal, I watched how Aubrey's family interacted. There was laughter and teasing, affection and respect. Richard and Carol clearly adored each other, finishing each other's sentences and sharing private smiles across the table. This was what a healthy marriage looked like. This was what I wanted to build with Aubrey. After dinner, Richard asked if I wanted to take a walk. We strolled through their neighborhood as the sun set, talking about baseball and work and life. Eventually, he brought up Aubrey. "She's my youngest," he said, "my baby girl, and I've never seen her as happy as she's been these past few months. I can tell you care about her, and I can tell you're a good father to those kids. That matters more than anything else." I felt my throat tighten with emotion. "Thank you, sir. I'm doing my best." "That's all any of us can do," Richard said, clapping me on the shoulder. "We all make mistakes. We all have baggage. What matters is how we learn from it and move forward. Don't let your past rob you of your future." His words stayed with me long after that evening. Don't let your past rob you of your future. It became a mantra I returned to whenever doubt crept in, whenever I was tempted to pull away from Aubrey because of fear. We dated for 2 years before I proposed. I wanted to be absolutely certain this time. I wanted Lena and Tyler to feel secure in the decision. The three of them had developed a beautiful bond. She simply showed them what healthy love looked like, what it meant to be cherished and prioritized. I talked to the kids before I proposed. I sat them down one evening after dinner and explained that I was thinking about asking Aubrey to marry me, but that I wanted to know how they felt about it first. Their happiness and comfort mattered more than anything. Lena's eyes lit up. "Does that mean Aubrey would be our mom?" "She would be your stepmom," I explained gently. "You still have a legal mom, even if things are complicated right now. But Aubrey loves you very much and would be part of our family." "Can we call her mom if we want to?" Tyler asked quietly. I felt tears prick my eyes. That would be something you could talk about with Aubrey. I'm sure she would be honored. Both kids gave me their blessing enthusiastically. Lena wanted to help me pick out the ring. Tyler asked if he could draw a picture that I could give to Aubrey along with the proposal. I proposed on a beach at sunset, just the 4 of us. I had told Aubrey we were going on a family outing, and she had no idea what I had planned. When I got down on one knee and pulled out the ring, with Lena and Tyler standing beside me holding a banner that said, "Will you marry us?" Aubrey burst into tears. She said yes before I could even get the words of my proposal out. She hugged the kids and then kissed me, and we all stood there on that beach as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, crying happy tears and laughing at the same time. Our wedding was small and intimate, just close friends and family. Aubrey's parents were there, beaming with pride and welcoming me and the kids into their family officially. My best friend Matthew was my best man, the person who had stood by me through the darkest days of my divorce and helped me believe I deserved happiness again. Lena and Tyler were part of the ceremony, standing with us as we exchanged vows, symbolizing that this wasn't just a marriage between Aubrey and me, but a joining of our family. I felt a pang of sadness that my own parents couldn't be there, but I knew they would have loved Aubrey. She was exactly the kind of woman they would have wanted for me. Strong and kind, patient and honest, a partner in the truest sense of the word. Aubrey and I honeymooned in Hawaii while Lena and Tyler stayed with Aubrey's parents. It was the first time I had truly relaxed in years. We spent our days exploring the island, swimming in crystal clear water, and eating incredible food. We spent our evenings talking about our dreams for the future, making plans for the life we wanted to build together. One night, as we sat on our hotel balcony watching the ocean, Aubrey took my hand. "I want to have children with you," she said softly. "I know we already have Lena and Tyler, and I love them like they're my own. But I'd like to experience pregnancy and birth with you if you're open to it." My heart swelled. "I would love that," I told her honestly. "I love our family exactly as it is, and I'm excited to expand it with you." And that's exactly what we did. The conversation with Lena and Tyler about having a new sibling was one I approached carefully. I didn't want them to feel replaced or less important. Aubrey and I sat them down together one evening, about 6 months after our wedding. "How would you two feel about having a baby brother or sister?" Aubrey asked gently. Lena's face broke into a huge grin. "Really? We're going to have a baby." Tyler was more thoughtful. "Would you still love us the same?" My heart broke a little at his question. I pulled him close. "Buddy, having more children doesn't divide love. It multiplies it. You and Lena will always be my first kids, my first miracles. Nothing will ever change that. A new baby would just mean more love in this house." "And you'll always be our first Bobbies," Aubrey added, reaching for Lena's hand. "Nothing about how much we love you will change. You're not getting replaced. Our family is just growing." Both kids seemed satisfied with that answer. Lena immediately started planning what color the nursery should be and what toys she would share with the baby. Tyler asked if he could draw pictures to hang in the baby's room. Aubrey got pregnant 6 months after our wedding. The moment we saw the positive test, we both cried happy tears. It felt like a miracle, a gift, a sign that we were exactly where we were supposed to be. The pregnancy was smooth and beautiful. Lena and Tyler were involved every step of the way. They came to ultrasound appointments and squealed with delight when they saw the baby moving on the screen. They helped us decorate the nursery, painting the walls a soft yellow and assembling furniture. They talked to Aubrey's belly every night before bed, telling the baby about their day and promising to be the best big siblings ever. Aubrey glowed throughout her pregnancy. I marveled at the changes in her body, at the way she carried our child with such grace and joy. I would rest my hand on her belly and feel the baby kick, overwhelmed with gratitude that I got to experience this, that life had given me a second chance at building the family I had always dreamed of. When our daughter QC was born, I cried tears of joy holding her for the first time. She had Aubrey's eyes and my nose, and she was absolutely perfect. Lena and Tyler met their new sister at the hospital, and watching them gently touch her tiny fingers and whisper hello to her is a memory I will treasure forever. The first few months with a newborn were exhausting but wonderful. Aubrey and I took turns with night feedings and diaper changes. Lena wanted to help with everything, from picking out QC's outfits to singing her lullabies. Tyler was more reserved but no less loving, often sitting quietly beside QC's crib and drawing pictures for her. As QC grew, our house filled with new sounds. Baby giggles and cries, lullabies and nursery rhymes, the chaos of toys scattered across the living room. It was messy and loud and absolutely perfect. 2 years later, we had twin boys, Oliver and Henry. Finding out we were having twins was a shock that quickly turned into excitement. Aubrey joked that we were building our own basketball team. The kids were thrilled at the prospect of not one but 2 new siblings. The twin pregnancy was harder on Aubrey physically. She was tired and uncomfortable in those last months, her belly enormous with 2 bobbies. I did everything I could to support her, taking over all the household duties, making sure she rested, rubbing her swollen feet at the end of each day. Lena, now 9 years old, stepped up in amazing ways. She would read to Aubrey when she was on bed rest. She would help Tyler, now 11, keep an eye on QC, who was a rambunctious toddler by then. She was becoming a beautiful, compassionate young woman, and I was so proud of her. When Oliver and Henry were born, our family felt complete. Watching Aubrey nurse our twin sons while Lena, Tyler, and QC played quietly nearby, I felt a profound sense of peace and gratitude. This was the life I had fought so hard to build. This was the family I was always meant to have. The early years with 5 children were wonderfully chaotic. Our mornings were a flurry of activity as we got everyone fed, dressed, and ready for the day. Aubrey went back to teaching part-time when the twins were old enough for daycare, and we coordinated our schedules like a well-oiled machine. Lena threw herself into dance with a passion that amazed us. She practiced for hours, her dedication and grace evident in every movement. Aubrey and I attended every recital, cheering loudly from the audience, watching our daughter bloom into a confident performer. Tyler continued to excel in art. His room was covered in drawings and paintings, each one more impressive than the last. We enrolled him in advanced art classes, and his teachers told us he had real talent, that he could pursue this professionally if he wanted. He started entering local art competitions and winning awards, his quiet confidence growing with each achievement. QC, even as a toddler, was pure sunshine. She had Aubrey's warm personality and my stubbornness, a combination that kept us on our toes. She wanted to do everything her older siblings did, whether it was dancing like Lena or drawing like Tyler. She adored her twin brothers, helping us with diaper changes and bottle feedings, even though she was barely old enough to hold the bottles properly. Oliver and Henry were identical in appearance, but completely different in personality. Oliver was the adventurous one, climbing everything in sight and giving us daily heart attacks. Henry was more cautious and observant, content to sit and watch before joining in. Together, they were a dynamic duo, getting into typical twin mischief and developing their own secret language. Our family dinners were loud and messy, with 5 kids talking over each other to share their stories from the day. But I loved every minute of it. This was what family was supposed to feel like, chaotic and imperfect and full of love. Sharon remained a distant figure in Lena and Tyler's lives. She never got her act together enough to move beyond supervised visits. The kids saw her every other month for a few hours, and while they were polite, there was no real warmth there anymore. Lena once told me, after a particularly awkward visit with Sharon, that it felt like seeing a stranger and that Aubrey was her real mom in every way that mattered. Aubrey was the one who braided her hair before recitals, who helped her with homework, who kissed her goodnight every evening, who showed up for every important moment. Tyler echoed those sentiments. He told me that he sometimes felt sad for Sharon, but that sadness didn't mean he wanted her back in his life in a meaningful way. Too much had been broken, too much trust had been shattered. Aubrey had earned his love and respect by simply being present, by choosing them every single day. Hearing my children articulate these feelings was bittersweet. I hated that they had experienced such disappointment and betrayal at Sharon's hands. But I was grateful that they had Aubrey, that they knew what healthy, consistent love looked like. Aubrey legally adopted Lena and Tyler 2 years after we got married. It was a formality in many ways, since she had already been their mother in every meaningful sense. But having it official, having their last names changed to match Aubrey's and mine, felt important. It symbolized that we were a family, truly and completely. As the years passed, I stopped thinking about Sharon except in the abstract. She was a part of my past, a chapter that taught me painful but necessary lessons about self-worth and boundaries. I didn't wish her harm, but I also didn't waste energy wondering how she was doing. My focus was on the present, on the family I had built, on the future we were creating together. Our 10th wedding anniversary arrived on a beautiful spring day. Aubrey and I decided to throw a big celebration, inviting all our closest friends and family. Aubrey's parents flew in and stayed with us for a week, doting on their grandchildren and helping with party preparations. The party was held at our beach house. We rented a tent and hired a caterer. There were lights strung up between the trees, tables covered in white linens, and the sound of laughter and music floating on the ocean breeze. I stood on the deck, watching Aubrey dance with QC while the twins chased Lena and Tyler around the yard. My heart felt so full it could burst. This was what I had always wanted. This was the life I had dreamed of. Not the picture-perfect fantasy I had tried to force with Sharon, but something real and earned and deeply true. Aubrey caught my eye and smiled, that same sunshine smile that had captured my heart years ago. She walked over and took my hand. "Happy anniversary," she whispered, leaning her head on my shoulder. "Happy anniversary," I whispered back, kissing the top of her head. Aubrey's father came up beside us, putting a hand on my shoulder. "You two have built something really special here," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm proud to call you my son." Those words meant more to me than he could ever know. I had lost my parents before I could show them the man I had become, before I could introduce them to their grandchildren. But Aubrey's parents had stepped into that void with love and generosity, giving me the family support I had been missing. As the sun set over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, I gathered my family together for a photo. Aubrey and I stood in the center, surrounded by our 5 beautiful children and Aubrey's parents. The photographer counted down, and right before the shutter clicked, I thought about how far I had come. 10 years ago, I had been a broken man sitting on the edge of a bed, holding a phone that revealed my wife's betrayal. I had been lost and hurting and convinced that I would never trust anyone again. But here I was, surrounded by people who loved me genuinely and completely. Here I was, happy. The photographer captured that moment, all of us smiling, all of us together. When I saw the photo later, I knew I would treasure it forever. It was proof that healing was possible. It was proof that you could survive betrayal and come out stronger on the other side. It was proof that sometimes the life you end up with is better than the one you planned. That night, after the guests had gone home and the kids were asleep, Aubrey and I sat on the beach watching the stars. The waves crashed gently against the shore, and the air smelled like salt and jasmine from the garden. "Do you ever think about her?" Aubrey asked softly. She never said Sharon's name, but I knew who she meant. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but not in the way you might think. I don't miss her. I don't wonder what if. I just think about how grateful I am that things happened the way they did. Because if they hadn't, I never would have found you." Aubrey squeezed my hand. "I'm grateful too, for all of it, even the hard parts that brought you to me." We sat in comfortable silence, 2 people who had both known pain and loss, who had both chosen to believe in love again. We had built something beautiful out of the ashes of my broken first marriage. We had created a family that was messy and loud and overflowing with love. As we walked back to the house hand in hand, I looked back one last time at the ocean. The moon was full and bright, casting silver light across the water. It reminded me of the whisper that had started all of this, the gut feeling that something was wrong, the courage to confront the truth, the strength to walk away from someone who didn't value me. That whisper had saved my life. It had led me away from a toxic situation and toward the future I deserved. It had protected my children from further harm. It had opened the door for real, authentic love to enter. I thought about Sharon, wherever she was, and I genuinely hoped she had found some measure of peace. I hoped she had learned from her mistakes. I hoped she was treating herself and others with more respect. But her journey was no longer my concern. My journey was here, in this beautiful house full of sleeping children and the woman who had shown me what partnership really meant. My journey was in the therapy sessions where I had learned to forgive myself for not seeing the signs sooner. My journey was in every bedtime story, every family dinner, every quiet moment of gratitude. The past would always be a part of me. The scars from that betrayal would never fully disappear. But scars are just proof that you survived something that tried to destroy you. They are evidence of healing, of resilience, of the human capacity to overcome. As I climbed into bed next to Aubrey that night, wrapping my arms around her and breathing in the familiar scent of her hair, I felt a profound sense of peace. This was home. This was love. This was the life I had fought so hard to build. And it was worth every painful step that brought me here. The whisper that had once warned me of danger had transformed into a whisper of hope, of second chances, of the promise that better days were always possible if you were brave enough to choose yourself, to protect what mattered, and to believe that you deserved more than crumbs of affection from someone who couldn't see your worth. I closed my eyes and drifted off to sleep, surrounded by love, held by peace, and deeply, profoundly grateful for the journey that brought me home to myself and to the family I was always meant to have. Years from now, when my children ask me about resilience, about how to handle heartbreak, about how to know when to fight and when to walk away, I will tell them this story. I will tell them that sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. I will tell them that you teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. I will tell them that their worth is not determined by someone else's inability to see it. And I will tell them to listen to that whisper, that quiet voice inside that knows the truth even when you want to ignore it. Because that whisper might just change your life. It changed mine. It saved mine. And for that, I will be forever grateful.